Avoiding drugs by simply saying no to them usually works for everyone, unless you're China facing the British Empire in the 1800s. The story of the Opium War takes us back 200 years ago when the British Empire was an unstoppable force of nature that was so vast that the sun never set. China was a very different place as well. It was an empire ruled by the Qing dynasty. Unlike today, the majority Han was oppressed by the Manchu, who held the elite positions in Chinese society. Despite having a commonality in the few elites oppressing the mass, the two countries were not exactly happy with each other. You see, the British were obsessed with Chinese luxury goods such as porcelain, tea, and silk. The Chinese, on the other hand, were not interested in anything the British offered to trade. Because of this, the only payment the Chinese were willing to take was silver. This created a huge deficit in the British trade balance. In order to fuel their Chinese goods addiction, the British had to gain more silver, and they decided to do this by getting the Chinese population addicted to opium and selling them for silver. Now, of course, any addiction is terrible, but buying exotic luxury goods makes the elites slightly snobbier than they already are. On the other hand, the British were out to turn all of China into Richmond. The Chinese government obviously wasn't happy about their population turning into fiends, so they decided to ban all opium imports, thinking that it'll put a stop to it. But the opium kept finding its way into the lungs of deadbeat Chinese fathers, thanks to dedicated smugglers working day and night. As the Chinese officials realized that their policy wasn't working, they decided to double down on toughness. Authorities around southern China rounded up all crates of opium and set them on fire to get rid of them for once and for all. Reports claim that there was a homeless guy nearby that got so high of the burning opium that he even reached nirvana, putting all the Buddhist monks to shame. I don't know, I made up the last part. While a Latin American cartel will chop up your torso in this situation as a warning, the British government on the other hand decided to open fire at Chinese ports. However, this did not faze the Qing Emperor, as he considered anyone who is not Chinese as barbarians. Unfortunately, the power of racism was no match to the British steam power ships. This still did not faze the Qing Emperor, and so the British persevered, primarily for two reasons: to end the concept of Chinese superiority and to keep selling drugs. To be more precise, the objective assigned to the British Royal Navy was to obtain compensation for the destroyed opium, enforce equal diplomatic ties, and secure an island trading post from China. These demands were being negotiated by Britain's Charles Elliot and China's Qi Shan. The two came to an agreement of £1 million in compensation, direct diplomatic ties, and handover of Hong Kong as a trading post to the British. Their bosses were not happy with this. Elliot got fired and Qi Shan was put to sleep. Forever. So fighting continued. With seasoned veterans, technologically advanced weaponry, and sophisticated tactics, the British Navy was able to make its way to the Canton River easily, where in the end they were confronted by the Chinese military that was forced to play defense. Fighting lasted 10 days with decisive British victory over the Chinese in the end. Keep in mind that the Emperor had no idea about what was truly going on in the battlefield. Chinese officials simply lied to him, probably in hopes of keeping their jobs. To apply more pressure to the imperial court, the Royal Navy made its way to the Yangtze River, capturing cities along the way, and to create an opening to Nanjing, the capital of China's south. In this point of my research, I was honestly quite impressed. Imagine what the half of population of Atlanta could achieve if they just locked in like what the British did. The final battle took place in Xinjiang, where the British pulled through undefeated. The Emperor finally caught wind of what was truly going on and had to sue for peace. Eventually, China swallowed its pride and had to admit defeat. What's noteworthy here is that the imperial court downplayed their own technological stagnation and instead blamed a military skill issue. In 1842, the two countries signed the Treaty of Nanking, where China was forced to open several ports, legalize opium, pay for the destroyed opium, and hand over Hong Kong to the British. This significantly weakened China and resulted in the American and the French to strong-arm China into more unequal treaties, marking the beginning of China's century of humiliation. So I guess the moral of the story is that if you're gonna say no to a drug dealer, make sure that they're not sponsored by a government agency.